Okay, we're live. Public is filtering in.
All right. Let's call to order this meeting of the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Commission. Ms. Susan? Ms. Susan, you want to call the roll?
Did you not want to do the pledge?
I thought we called the roll first, but yes.
No, ma'am.
Okay, let's do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America,
to the
republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jerry Smitko,
Here.
Joe McPherson,
Here.
Andrew Blanchard,
Here.
Dusty Guidry,
Here.
Bill Hogan,
Here.
Gene Reynolds.
Here.
Allison Sari. Al's here. His phone is, his microphone is muted. Madam Chair, we have 7 commissioners in attendance and we have a quorum. Secretary Montese is also present.
Thank you, Ms. Susan. Mr. Garrett, would you like to explain how the public can interact?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair, appreciate it. So this is something that's fairly new to everybody. We're used to in-person meetings. I wanted to explain how public comment can be received and has been received. We had public comments open and available till 5 p.m. Yesterday through our email portal. All comments that were received on various agenda items were distributed to the commission. Y'all have received those. For the purposes of this meeting, before the commission takes a vote on each action item, Madam Chair, if you will, recognize Ms. Susan, and she can tell you a summary of the comments that were received via email. And then you can either read those aloud, or if there's a lot of them, just say, yes, I understand that we've received those comments and we've reviewed them. At the time for a vote, the chairman can announce that public comment will be accepted on the agenda item that's being discussed via the Zoom chat feature. We will leave that open for a period of 3 minutes, Madam Chair. So once you open the floor for public comment, we will leave the Zoom chat feature open for 3 minutes. Only comments that are received through the Zoom chat feature during that time will be accepted for purposes of consideration and inclusion on the record. So anything that comes before or after, or that's not pursuant to the agenda item that we're on, will not be included on the record or considered for discussion. After 3 minutes, the chairman will announce a period of public comment is closed. She will then ask the commission if they have any discussion on the matters received during the comment. So members of the public, just to be clear, the panelists, including all the commissioners, will be able to read and see your chats as they come in. They will not be read aloud, but the commissioners will have an opportunity to discuss any comments after the 3 minutes is up. As you can see on your screen here, these are the instructions for using the chat feature. Renee, I'll turn it over to you if you have anything technically to add for using the chat.
Anything, Renee?
So I think that covers everything. Just feel free to chime in during the meeting if you need any help, technical help from Joel or I, and we are happy to help out, but I think that covers it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Is there a motion regarding the adoption of July 2021 commission minutes?
Don't move.
Moved by. What's that? Did I have a second?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Guidry. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Do I have a motion regarding the approval of the August 5th, 2021 agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Gendry,
Second.
Second.
second by another commissioner. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Under personal privilege, I think we have some special appreciation to announce to Mr. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Patrick Banks, Assistant Secretary of Fisheries. And I'd like to say a few words about Mr. Ed Swindell, who is the outgoing member from Louisiana, the commercial representative to the Gulf of Mexico Fisheries Management Council. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Ed has served the last 6 years on the Gulf of Mexico Fisheries Management Council as the commercial representative from Louisiana. He's had a long history in fisheries management, has been a tremendous asset to the state for both commercial and recreational interests in the state on the federal management level. He was born and raised in Cameron, Louisiana, has been around fisheries all his life. He worked for a long time in the menhaden industry where he retired. And that took him from Cameron, Louisiana to Virginia to Houston, back to Louisiana, working his way up through that industry and through the company where he retired and has been in fisheries management issues for 45 years. Additionally, and probably more impressive, is he just completed, I want to say, his 55th wedding anniversary with his beautiful bride, Becky. So just a wonderful couple they are. You know, what I was always struck with by Ed and working with Ed side by side at the Gulf Council was he was always an honest player. He always worked with integrity, and really he always worked with fairness in a lot of the issues. Yes, he was the commercial representative, but it was clear from his votes and his comments that he was always fighting for what was best for Louisiana, whether it was a recreational issue or a commercial issue. And most of you all on the commission know of the decades-long difficulties that we've had with red snapper on the recreational side. Ed was voting and working towards regional and state management even before I got on the Gulf Council. You know, he voted to continue to try to get regional management back in early 2016. This was before I got on the council, when all of the state directors around the Gulf actually voted against regional management. So he had the foresight to see that we were going down that road, even when our own state representative and some of the recreational interests voted against it. He was critical in helping us later on in 2016 get an amendment started for private recreational state management. And he was instrumental in helping us get that passed. So he was not only at the council level on federal fisheries management fighting for commercial fisheries, but he was fighting for the recreational angler as well. So it's just been a pleasure to work with him. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank him for his service on the Gulf Council, thank him for his service on various advisory panels for the Gulf Council, certainly thank him for his service on the Wildlife and Fisheries Commission. He served for a time even on the commission that you all are serving on right now. So he's just been a tireless advocate for Louisiana fisheries and sustainable fisheries over the years. And I just wanted to pass along my thanks to him, and I'm sure the commission thanks him for his service as well. In addition to that, I wanted to announce the federal selection of the new council member for the commercial side. That is a name that many of y'all will recognize because he used to serve on the commission as well. And that's Mr. Billy Broussard from Pecan Island. Billy, just like Ed, is a tireless advocate for Louisiana fisheries. He's a commercial crabber. He's a charter captain. He's a duck guide. He's an avid offshore angler. So we're really happy to have him coming on to the council with us as well. And I think he's going to do great things for Louisiana and really represent our state well. So just wanted to give you all that update. Thank Ed for all of his wonderful service, not just on the council, but over his career, and welcome Billy Broussard to the council as the commercial representative for Louisiana. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I believe I speak for all members of the commission in joining Mr. Banks on that praise for Mr. Swindell and the work he's done for all of us. Thank you. The enforcement report, Major.
Madam Chairman.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
I'd just like to compliment Ed for all of his service also and welcome Billy and look forward to working with him. But I'd like to give the commission and you, Madam Chairman, a brief overview of where we stand with COVID. All of you know that this past week, the governor has spent a lot of time on television and is really concerned about the surge, the second surge that we were in. And it certainly looks like it's going to be worse than the first surge. But in the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, we've got about 30 employees that have been affected and either in quarantine or on leave right now pending some testing. We've got 15 members of our department that are positive, and it looks like after talking to a few of the people that number is going to go up again today. This was yesterday's numbers. So, you know, we're going to probably experience some issues, especially dealing with the public, because of a lot of employees that are going to be affected that deal with the public on a daily basis. So I would ask the public to be patient with us. We're certainly going to do everything that we can to meet their needs and to help them get whatever registration or licenses that they need. But we're in a heck of a situation right now, and it doesn't look very good. In fact, it looks a little darker than what we first estimated it to be. So hang in there. And the only thing I can tell everybody is to please consider getting vaccinated, because the answer to this big problem that we're having is vaccinations, social distancing, and wearing masks. Let's not be stupid. Let's be smart. Look at the science and talk to your doctor to get that, you know, what they feel like you need to do. And let's get vaccinated, because the sooner the more people are vaccinated, the sooner we get out of this pandemic and we can go back to normal. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Anything else in personal privilege? All right. Major Newball.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Good morning. In July, we had 19 boating incidents, 15 injuries, and 2 fatalities. We had 627 written citations, 501 written warnings, and 24 public assists. I'm going to read a couple of case reports. Agents cited a businessman for alleged commercial crab trap violation in Plaquemine Parish. Agents were on patrol in Bay Sherry when they observed an individual running crab traps. Agents conducted a commercial license inspection and found the fisherman in possession of another fisherman's crab trap and numerous traps not properly marked. The inspection also revealed numerous immature female crabs for which there is no season, and also possessed a container with numerous undersized crabs. The subject was cited for theft of crab traps, unlawfully removing contents, violating crab trap markings, take or possessing immature female crabs, and taking 20% of undersized crabs. In support of Operation Dry Water, LWF agents arrested 11 boaters statewide for alleged driving or operating a vessel while intoxicated during the 4th of July weekend. Operation Dry Water was started in 2009 as a joint program involving LWF enforcement agents, the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, and the U.S. Coast Guard. On July 3rd, 3 subjects were arrested for DUI. On July 4th, 8 subjects were arrested for DUI. In Louisiana, a DWI on the water carries the same penalties and fines as on the road. Anyone cited for a DWI on the water or the road will lose his or her driving license and boating privileges for a specific time ordered by the judge in the case. Also, each offense of operating a vehicle or vessel while intoxicated counts towards the total number of DUI crimes, whether they happen on the water or the land. Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fishery Enforcement agents successfully rescued a woman after a traffic accident in Union Parish on July 19th. LDWF Corporal Clint Branton and Senior Agent Hunter Breed were traveling westbound around 1 p.m. on Evergreen Road west of Farmerville when they encountered a Honda Civic in the eastbound lane. The car crossed over the road into the agent's lane and then into a creek that runs alongside the road. The car entered the creek and was upside down in the water with a 46-year-old woman trapped inside. Corporal Branton and Senior Agent Breed responded immediately and were able to free the woman from the car and get her to safe ground. The woman only suffered a small cut on her arm. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is proposals for the waterfowl breeding ground funding.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good morning. I'm Scott Durham, Biologist Director of the Species Management Branch of the Wildlife Division. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce representatives of the two entities that submitted proposals for waterfowl breeding grounds habitat protection. And as y'all will remember, this is following the resolution passed by this commission in June. No action is requested at this time. At the September meeting, we will ask you for a decision on how you will direct the breeding grounds funding be spent. First up will be Ducks Unlimited Canada and Ducks Unlimited Inc.'s proposal presented by Dave Kosterski.
Morning, thanks Scott, thanks Chairman Smitko, Secretary Monase. Thank you so much for the opportunity to apply for LWF funding. It's a great partnership that we've had since 1965 and look forward to the opportunity to continue to partner. I'm going to share my screen and my presentation that I have set up for today. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes,
And is it in presentation mode now?
yes.
Yes.
All right. Can you see that side screen with the other people on there or just the PowerPoint?
I see the other panelist.
Okay, how's that?
It's fine.
All right. Thank you. This is the ripple effect. The concept of the ripple effect is really about how each of us add to this ripple in the water that makes a difference across the continent. Ducks Unlimited Canada believes that it takes many partnerships across the continent, just as the North American Waterfowl Management Plan designed, and we all take part in that to make a change in North America for waterfowl. In Canada, in the Prairie Pothole region, about 50% of the continent's breeding ducks breed up in the Canadian PPR, and the funding that LWF provides is critical funding that flows through the Fall Flights program, which is part of the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies partnerships. The Fall Flights program, this past year for Ducks Unlimited, there were 44 states that participated in this program, providing funding to Ducks Unlimited for work in Canada. When you look at the Canadian prairies, there's the three provinces that are the Prairie Pothole region of Canada. When you look at the breeding pairs or predicted breeding pairs in Canada, you're looking at about 57% of those land and breed in Saskatchewan, about 31% in Alberta, and about 12% in Manitoba. As well, if you look at the ponds, and this is one thing I like to talk about, is it's really about where the ponds are, right? Because the ponds don't move. The ducks move, but the ponds stay where they are, whether they're in the US or Canada, that's where the ponds are. And Saskatchewan holds the largest amount of ponds out of the whole Prairie Pothole region in North America. Band recovery data also supports that Saskatchewan is one of the most, if not the most important waterfowl area for Louisiana. And there's a long history of Louisiana ducks coming from Saskatchewan. Louisiana partnership in the banding station in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, as part of the Mississippi Flyway has been run for over 30, close to 40 years now. So there's a strong relationship between Saskatchewan, the ducks from Saskatchewan, and Louisiana. In our proposal, Ducks Unlimited based our proposal on the available $270,000 per year from LWF. Hopefully you all have had an opportunity to see our proposal, and if not, I understand you have the next month to look it over and before your decision at the next commission meeting. When we look at the breeding grounds in Canada, it's really about ponds and grass. Ponds tells you how many breeding pairs it can hold. So the more ponds there are, the more ducks that can be held on the landscape. And keeping those ponds in place is absolutely critical to sustain that carrying capacity of the prairie pothole region. It also provides the foods. So the food in those wetlands, I had a commissioner from Arkansas once asked me, how come we don't do feeding programs, provide additional foods in the wetlands? Hey, the wetlands have abundant food. They just need to stay there. We need to keep them on the landscape. We don't need to add any food as we would have to in other areas, maybe in the south, in the wintering grounds. The food is abundant if we can keep the wetlands on the landscape. But we also need grasslands. Gadwall, mallard, pintail, all those species nest in grasslands that are adjacent to the wetlands that you guys see the waterfowl on up in the breeding grounds. So it's absolutely critical that we work with agriculture, the cattle industry, and others to make sure that we have the grasslands surrounding those wetlands on the prairie pothole region. You've probably seen this map before. This is the waterfowl density map, predicted density across Canada on average wetland conditions. And you can see how much of that prairie pothole priority areas for waterfowl fall in Saskatchewan. It's absolutely the critical area for waterfowl production in Canada. It has the most ponds, it's got the highest density of waterfowl, and the greatest opportunity to return waterfowl out of conservation investment. The primary challenges are wetland drainage and working with agriculture, the annual crop agriculture. High commodity prices in particular and increased land values are putting huge pressures on wetlands and grasslands across the prairie pothole region. Talking with my brother-in-law last week, canola prices are now peaking over $20 to $22 a bushel. We've never seen canola prices at that level. Canola typically runs around the $12 a bushel. With it pushing over 20, this is really going to drive an increased pressure on wetlands and on cultivating every last acre for agricultural producers. The pressures have never been as high as they are today. So the challenges we have to address are the continued wetland loss and degradation of the carrying capacity for waterfowl, the need to protect and restore all those critical, those high waterfowl density areas. Those are the top 75% of our waterfowl come from those high density wetlands. And the cattle industry, absolutely critical to work with the cattle industry. It is just, without cows, there's not a demand for grass. And without a demand for grass, we just can't we'll do everything we can to put easements and do acquisition and protect habitats, but we have to have a cattle industry that's healthy and strong to have the millions of acres of grasslands that we need across the prairie pothole region to support the waterfowl population. So in our proposal, we have 3 efforts. First one is habitat protection. We propose to protect 2,850 acres of conservation easements. Those are in perpetuity, so they're forever. We propose to purchase 480 acres, or what we call 3/4 sections of land, and keep those in perpetuity. And we also propose to do conservation agreements, 20 to 30-year agreements on about 1,500 acres. This is all over the 3-year proposal. On the upland restoration, we propose to convert cultivation to forages with private landowners, providing incentives to cattle producers to convert cultivated acres to grass of 1,730 acres. And we continue to encourage the winter wheat program. We put a small amount of money there, but we propose to continue to work with the agricultural crop industry. One of the benefits of winter wheat is it does work back-to-back well with canola. So with the abundance of canola in the landscape, it's a good option for landowners who shouldn't be doing back-to-back canola because of disease issues. So it opens a window to do winter wheat, and we continue to promote that and encourage landowners to plant winter wheat. It's beneficial for waterfowl nesting. And of course, we have a large habitat asset inventory. This is all the projects across the landscape. What we propose to manage with LWF and matching funds is 140,000 acres. It costs us roughly $3 an acre to manage those habitats. And we have about 1.4 million acres in Saskatchewan to manage annually. So with the LWF legislated funds, we propose over the 3 years, 270,000 a year for a total of 810,000. Ducks Unlimited will match those dollars, and we will apply to NACA to match those dollars. We currently have active grants with NACA and have not had an unsuccessful grant for the history of Ducks Unlimited applying since 1991. The total US will add up to 3,240,000. The current exchange rate to Canadian funds from that ends up at $3,888,000 Canadian. So in the legislation under NACA, there's a minimum 50% US non-federal match. That's really where the Louisiana or the US state dollars come from. Ducks Unlimited gets these funds from state agencies, from major donors, and from our fundraising in the US. Those dollars, those US non-federal dollars, are the limiting factor to accessing NACA funding going to Canada and their breeding grounds conservation work. Here's the detailed table that's in the proposal. As you can see, we propose to use all the LWF funding for conservation easements and acquisition for a total of 810,000 over the 3 years. That will accomplish 850 acres of conservation easement and 320 acres of acquisition. We also propose the match dollars to accomplish 2,000 acres of conservation easement, another 160 acres of acquisition, and then all the remaining activities such as the conservation agreements of 1,500 acres, rebuilding a wetland project, 50 acres. Our forage program accomplishing 1,703 acres. And then the total for 5,440 acres. So for a proposal total of 6,610 acres of habitat accomplishment and $3,240,000. We have a small amount of indirects. With our US NACA grants, there is implying for the federal funding, there is an allowance for indirects. It falls on average because you remove all of the actual acquisition of easements and acquisition costs. You can't use those as part of your indirects. So it works out at about a 5% indirect rate on the total. So in closing, I just want to point out that the critical nature of working with Ducks Unlimited in Saskatchewan is that Saskatchewan has more wetlands than any other jurisdiction in the Prairie Pottle region. Saskatchewan has the lowest cost per acre for conservation delivery, and Saskatchewan has the highest risk to wetland loss. At this time, we still don't have good wetland policy to protect wetlands in Saskatchewan. We're working hard at trying to change those wetland policies, working with the Saskatchewan Environment and Saskatchewan Water Stewardship. And we really are trying to get that to be stopped. But at this point, it really is one of the highest risk areas of wetland loss across North America. Louisiana investment in habitat in Saskatchewan will secure the greatest habitat return on investment for your conservation dollar. You can be a part of the ripple effect, this idea that the theme is to work together to make a difference across North America and across the ponds. I'll stop sharing my presentation now and happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any hands.
No questions for Dave?
All right. Well, Chairman Smitko, I wish I could have been there in person. Had my flight all booked, had to cancel it all on Monday. Monday was a holiday up here, so got a hold of folks and got everything canceled, but really wish I could have been there in person, and hopefully things improve down in Louisiana and maybe we can be there in September.
Thank you so much, Dave.
All right. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and I'll sit around if there happen to pop up any additional questions later.
Righty. Scott?
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Next up will be Delta Waterfowl's proposal presented by Mr. John Davis.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Secretary. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Like Dave, I'd much rather be there in person, but let's hope we can get through the final stretch of this pandemic. All right, here we go. Share my screen. There we go. You guys see that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's you guys are a strong duck hunting state, and as an organization, your partnership means so much. And it's quite a task managing a bird that uses an entire continent. But the partnerships are extremely important, and look forward to continuing this partnership. So first up, again, myself, John Davis, also have Stephen Carlisle on the phone. He is our Canadian partner for housing these easements with the Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation, the Chief Operating Officer there. And Joel, our Chief Conservation Officer, obviously leads much of this work and happens to be in meetings in Pennsylvania today and sends his regrets, but will certainly be available over the next month if questions arise. Today, hope to, so I hit the introductions already, talk a little bit about partnerships, some recent success that we've achieved along with the state of Louisiana, future success, talk about what we're asking for, and you know, some considerations for justification of these dollars. And finally, I don't know if there's a platform for questions, but anywhere throughout this, feel free to stop me. All right, busy slide. The point being here, gosh, it takes an army to raise these ducks, and Delta Waterfowl, along with our partners at Ducks Unlimited and the many partners across the landscape, are appreciative and are proud to do this work on behalf of LWF as we plug in with the various joint ventures, as we work within the waterfowl management plan, as we partner with NACA. Delta specifically has a long-standing partnership with MHHC, which is one of the 4 organizations in Canada that actually apply and manage those NACA dollars, and the largest holder of easements there in Manitoba. The point being here, you guys are part of a large group of partnerships that we're happy to represent you and all the hunters of Louisiana as we go and do these good things for ducks in Canada. Brief review, your primary partners here are Delta and MHHC. At Delta, we represent ducks and duck hunters across the continent in these 4 areas of duck production, habitat conservation, research, and Hunter 3. It's interesting that we somewhat understand the issues with ducks, but the hunting issue is becoming more and more of a priority for Delta as we work to protect our traditions. Our vision is abundant waterfowl and endless opportunities for hunters. And our mission is to produce ducks and secure the future of hunting. Here, I'll hand it over to Stephen for a moment, if that's okay, to speak a bit about Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation and all of the work that Stephen is doing to deliver these goals.
Yeah, thank you, John, and thank you, Madam Chair and Secretary and Commissioners. It's actually fortunate to have an opportunity to do this via Zoom, and I can participate, and I would love to be down there and participating in person, and perhaps in the future we can do that or meet some of you if you're up in Manitoba. Be thrilled to show you some of the projects that we've delivered with previous funding we received, and hopefully in the future here. As John introduced, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation. We've been around for 35 years in Manitoba, but you know, we're not as well known as Delta is. So just great to have a little bit of opportunity here to talk to you about what MHHC is and what we do. We've been a part of waterfowl conservation, both provincially in Manitoba and regionally in the Canadian prairies and across North America for 35 years. Just recently, we've transitioned from an arm's length Crown Corporation, it's an arm's length to the provincial government, to now we're a full registered charity here in Canada. But you know, we were set up all around implementing waterfowl conservation. All of our field offices are set up in the hottest spots of waterfowl breeding in Manitoba, and that's been the mainstay. Conservation easements have been the mainstay of MHHC since the easement legislation came into effect in Manitoba in 1998. So since then, we're pushing up near 200,000 acres of perpetual easements in the province of Manitoba. You know, the majority of those are for benefits to waterfowl. We do have a substantial portion of easements that we do as well for protecting grasslands for species at risk, which obviously have a huge benefit to for supplemental habitat for waterfowl. We are an active participant in the Prairie Habitat Joint Venture. I sit on the board. Exciting right now is we're about to release the new implementation plan for 2021 through 2025, and that's the PHJV's implementation plan on how to achieve the goals of NAWAMP and MHHC. And proud to be a part of the development of that plan, and we actually coordinate the setting of objectives here in Manitoba, and as well as reporting on accomplishments for some of the partners. So it's a really, we feel we play a strong role in that, and as well, Delta Waterfowl is on the board of PHJV as well. Nationally, we sit on the North American Wetlands Conservation Council for Canada, as well as the staff, and you know, internationally, our CEO Tim Sopak is on the NAWAMP Plan Committee. An exciting new thing for me is to participate in AFWA's Fall Flights Task Force over the past several months here as an ex officio member with my colleague on this call, David Kosterski. And really excited to be able to participate in that in the future, hopefully if the recommendations come through, potentially on an advisory committee role representing the Delta MHHC partnership, but we'll have to see how that comes here in September. So yeah, as the slide shows, we've got about 874 easements. We received the most amount of donated easements in Manitoba. Long history of working with landowners. You know, this proposal with Delta, we really focused on easements, just keep it nice and clean on easements, but we do have a lot of other activities we do for beneficial management practices with the cattle industry and species at risk and water quality, et cetera. But that's in addition to this focus program, which is really waterfowl based, and we really appreciate the support that we've received from Louisiana in the past, and it really is key for accessing the NACA funds, and demand for easements and waterfowl easements have been really high lately, exceptionally high, and would really appreciate some additional funding to access the NACA funding in the future. So with that, I'll maybe hand it back to John. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Stephen, and we'll keep this moving along here. So first, I'll talk just a moment about recent success. Again, thank you all for commissioners for trusting Delta in this partnership. We've recently achieved 2,767 acres in perpetually secured acres. And, you know, in the previous cycle, it was a bit more open to restoration and enhancement. So in addition to those perpetual easements, we achieved the restoration, which is far more expensive. And then additionally, directly to the focus of duck production, you all helped us manage and install an additional 3,870 hen houses in Manitoba. And these are the dollars we were able to achieve. Again, it's amazing the magic of our forefathers, if you will, the way they set this thing up, and how we can use your funds to go out onto the landscape, gain others, and do big things. All right, let's turn to this year. Again, thank you for keeping this open and available. Our request to you, as we understood in the new resolution, we want to be very careful to follow your instruction, which is an equivalent contribution, which we understood to be an equivalent contribution, perpetual investment only, and additionally that indirect rate remaining below 10%. So we are focusing only on perpetual securement. And in this new proposal, we're hoping that you will team with us at a goal of securing 1,430 acres over this next cycle. Monetarily, what that comes to, or what we're asking for, is roughly 300,000 over the life cycle. That's assuming you know, the availability there, but it comes to a percent, which was our previous award, which was 1/3 of the annual funds available. So roughly 100,000 per year. And so for the continuation of this presentation, we'll use these numbers of 100,000 per year over the 3 years for our request to be 300,000. Again, very simply, the magic here is LWF's funds are able to partner with Delta MHHC funds and then stand up for that 50-50 match to go to NACA and get $2 more and turn. And we've heard, you know, pretty strongly from fall flights that we'd like to stay within that 1 to 4. And so this fits nicely with these rounded numbers, of course, changing depending on what's available there in Louisiana. So I started as a biologist. This is where I'd like to talk for a minute. I enjoy this story more and some considerations, but you know, what are we trying to do here? Ultimately, we're protecting the future potential for these landscapes to produce ducks. And it's all about basins. Once we lose those basins, it's gone. We can bring grass back, as Dave pointed out. They've got to have a place to nest. But once these wetlands that are very vulnerable to draining are drained, we've kind of lost that capacity for good. And ultimately, there's a threshold where the landscape just can't produce enough ducks for what we hope to be able to hunt and maintain those viable populations. So some considerations I'd like to walk through is spatial diversity in your investment. Absolutely, cumulative scale matters. And so we started some great things in certain regions of Manitoba. We'd love to continue to build on that. It's key to invest in the highest quality. Those areas where breeding duck pairs are high, basins are high. And remember, these are little dry swells. These aren't big wetlands like we're familiar with here in the South. They maybe are only wet for a few weeks, but that's all that matters for those breeding pairs to set up and get that hen into egg laying mode. And ultimately, across the prairie, including Eastern Canadian PPR, there is a strong link to harvest in Louisiana. So when we think about investing spatially, it's kind of, you think about how you diversify your portfolio of you know, personal or institutional investments. Diversity over time, space, et cetera, are really important. So I bring this up. Okay, we all know the story this year. You know, we haven't seen a widespread drought like we're experiencing this year since the mid 80s. And we know for a fact that duck populations are heavily recruitment driven, meaning, you know, kind of like quail, it's all about hatch. These aren't long-lived birds. So this year we're going to be short on young birds. And so as you look at investing your dollars to secure the future, it's key to think about investing that, diversifying that spatially, because ultimately those ponds are not what we might think of as a stock tank here that, okay, it doesn't rain, it goes down a couple feet, but we still got water. It's really about having the potential when it does snow and rain. And we've learned a big lesson this year that, hey, you know, if any of you have driven across the prairie, I haven't been into Canada, but lots of time in North Dakota this year, there is no water on the landscape. And so it's important to diversify those investments. So what I'm showing you here is April of this year, you know, arguably one of the most important months of the year for ducks to return to water. And specifically, I'll call it that strong dotted line there. That's the region we're looking at. So if you look at this year, with red being the worst drought, back to the lighter colors being, you know, abnormally dry, you look at that and you go, boy, this year, I'm glad that we invested in, you know, Alberta. Alberta happened to have a little more rain, or maybe portions of Montana. But here's the nature of waterfowl. These birds are biologically, you know, they are equipped to move across the landscape to get the things that they need. And if we back up a year, we look at, you know, this heart of the Manitoba area we're focusing on wasn't in drought. And we've known the last few years that Saskatchewan, the by sheer acreage, largest portion of the Canadian prairie pothole region has experienced some drought over the last few years, and that affects especially the age ratio of birds we see in the South. So something to consider. It makes a lot of sense to consider diversifying your investment in protecting the future across the landscape, because if it doesn't rain, doesn't matter how many basins you got, there's no water there. I'll move on to a second concept, and this goes to, we're just going to talk about perpetual acres only. I'm not talking about anything else, but you all have done an impressive thing by investing over the past 3 years in Manitoba, and scale matters. It's a really good idea to continue that work with a continuation of this expansion over the coming cycle. And so then we begin to build out, scale and size over time, and we look forward to that. So in this scenario, we're looking at building to specific Louisiana generated acres, perpetual only, of almost 4,200. This is a really unique example of how what those numbers mean. So what we're looking at here, and you guys have seen this before, we're looking at a portion of South and West Manitoba there near Oak Lake. And this is the power of those partnerships. Okay, so there's multiple partners working within a target landscape, an important bird area. And you'll notice that the work, so the green is DU Canada, the green squares. The blue is Delta MHHC. The yellow is Nature Conservancy Canada. And the hash striped area there is a wildlife refuge. And to drive that point home, it's amazing what begins to happen over a landscape when we all work in partnership to create scale. And so you'll notice there's some sections in there that don't have outline. And so, for instance, between our work and our partners with Nature Conservancy and Ducks Unlimited, who are doing great work in this area, it would be wonderful to continue your work on the landscape so we can begin to plug those holes and really build effect at scale. So the point being here that we would love to continue this partnership along with our other partners on the landscape there to continue to plug up those holes. Highest quality, Dave pointed it out. It's extremely, this is throwing good money after good. And what I'm representing here, the easements in Canada held by MHHC. But to let you know, what we are focusing on are those PHJV priority areas. And those are the little bit darker shade of peach, if you call that color. But we're focusing on high wetland densities, evidence of high breeding duck pairs. This information coming directly from the breeding waterfowl and habitat surveys carried out every year, the spring BPOP. And a really key point here that we all know is Canada, even though we're making great strides in Manitoba, we're still missing some of the framework that we have here in the States. And wetlands are extremely vulnerable to loss there, more so unprotected than here in the States. And so we want to focus on those landscapes. This is all private land ownership, right? These are working farms, and that's a very delicate balance to work with private landowners to protect those most vulnerable, less than a half acre, 12 to 24 inches deep, ephemeral, semi-permanent, small wetlands. This is what drives continental duck numbers, and those are the most vulnerable. They're the easiest to drain. And a really important part here is these willing landowner relationships. There may be landscapes where Ducks Unlimited has far better relationships, and we would absolutely see those areas to say, go forth, brothers, and do good work. Maybe there's places where Delta has better relationships. Maybe there's places where Nature Conservancy has better relationships. This land lies in the hands of private landowners, and they are really the key. And we have to work as a big family, and we have to stand up whoever has the best relationship in various scenarios to go out on the landscape and achieve good things for the ducks. So here's a landscape. I threw this up here as a picture to get an idea. You know, some of us might call this a moonscape. This is a working farm. So I would say this is medium moisture year. Some of those type 3 wetlands, a little bit more permanent wetlands have got some water, but you'll notice the discoloration there. Those small shallow depressions that may have a little green in them there, that's what we're talking about. That is what drives continental duck numbers on a massive scale. And so this landscape would absolutely be a high priority. And you can see evidence of some drainage happening out there. And it doesn't take much to hook a turn plow in one of these wetlands, run a small ditch over to a small ditch over to a larger roadside ditch. And ultimately the ecology and hydrology of that basin has changed. This is the sort of landscape that we want to invest your dollars for greatest return. Here's another situation, a little more type 3 work, probably more in the parklands or type 3 wetlands rather. This is where we're focusing. Lots of very small ephemeral and temporary wetlands. Finally, the point, you know, I know it always comes up here. The point here is the portion of Manitoba that's within the prairie potholes is as important as anywhere on the landscape. You know, it's like saying a portion of North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, which not a lot left there, Montana, might be less important because by sheer number, the area is smaller. And that's absolutely the case with Manitoba. Only a third of the province of Manitoba is in the prairie pothole. But again, animals don't see these binary jurisdictions where the habitat is good. They'll sit down and make baby ducks. So let me recap here. What we're asking for you guys to consider joining in Delta is a third of those annual funds. Your specific funds over the life of this project, we very conservatively project that would achieve 686 acres in perpetual easements only. The additional match, we would seek 744 acres in perpetual easement and some fee title, both perpetual, for a total objective of 1,430 acres perpetually secured. With that, on behalf of all the hunters of Louisiana, our 7,000 members, and all those international conservation partners, thank you guys for your consideration, and we look forward to getting all the information that you need to be able to make the best decision.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? We do have a comment there, and I guess all the panelists can see it. And I would appreciate somebody responding to that. I mean, I can, but I think there's somebody better to respond to it.
You know, I think you're talking about the, I'm sorry, Chairman Smitko, is not sure the Robert's rules. Can I respond here or?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And Dave, jump in here at any point. So Logan, gosh, what a big question. What is the biggest issue with ducks? What are we doing to try and fix it? What is something that you can do as a young person to help the cause? First off, thank you for being here today and asking the question. One of the most important things, I don't know your age, but as a young person, look to your left, look to your right, and take somebody hunting. This amazing North American model that we have set up, as successful as any model in the history of mankind.
Don, make it a brief response.
Oh, gotcha. Biggest issue, sorry. You know, duck numbers are driven by hatch, and that's why we focus much of our energy in the breeding grounds, short-lived species. So I would say, you know, I'm going to say my opinion is breeding ground wetland protection. And we know that the answer there is incentive-based partnerships with private landowners and key vital rates that are being suppressed primarily by duck nest predators, which is nest success, hen success, and brood survival.
All right, and Logan, thank you for asking a question, but I'll also ask that you reach out to the folks in the department. There's some really interesting stuff going on with tracking the actual migration, and perhaps there might be at some point an internship or something you could do to assist the department, and we'd like to get you involved. Any other questions or comments? Scott, anything else you have?
No, ma'am, that pretty much concludes our presenters, and I think we can move on unless anyone else has a question or any other input.
I don't see any other hands, so we'll move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it.
There was a point, I believe, when a commissioner had his hand up. Andrew, I believe you had your hand up and I missed it. Do you have something you need to bring forth?
No, ma'am. I just noticed I had my hand raised and it was from the beginning of the meeting, so we'll go on.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Peyton Cagle to discuss declaration of emergencies at the opening.
Yes,
date.
ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commission members. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you, Peyton.
Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Madam Chair, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you, but your screen's gone.
But I lost your screen.
Yeah, Peyton, go ahead and open up your screen again.
I'm not receiving any feedback from anyone.
Hello, Peyton, can you hear me?
Peyton, can you hear me? Peyton can't hear.
Renee, can you or Joel hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but can you hear us?
Okay, I see y'all shaking heads. I'm not getting any feedback through my speakers for some reason. I will work on my speaker here and I'll move forward with my screen share.
We can see it now.
All right, today I'm going to be presenting the results from our most recent data we collected, and I'm going to be sharing the biological recommendation to establish the opening dates for the 2021 fall inshore shrimp season. Just as a reminder about the zones, you can see just a brief management, how we recognize our zones. Zone 1 is all the way to the east. That's our Mississippi, Louisiana state line to the Mississippi River. And Zone 2 is from the Mississippi River to Freshwater Bayou. And Zone 3 is Freshwater Bayou to the Texas-Louisiana border. As I stated, we were going to be discussing our current data. This was collected last week, July 26th through the 30th. Starting with Zone 1, the first thing you'll notice is the two different figures. These are size frequencies. The reason there's two of them is obvious when you look at the different breakdown. You'll see that at the bottom one for Zone 1, the Biloxi Marsh area, the majority of all of the shrimp, the white shrimp that were caught, are in that 1,300 to 2,000 and 2,000 plus. That's almost 35% for 2,000 count and over, and over 25% that are 1,300 to 2,000 count. and our open water figure at the top, you'll see more tight groupings from anywhere from that 6170 count all the way up to 200. You're seeing groups that represented, 6 to 7 all the way to 9%. So really tight groupings there with that size. When we move on to look at the next figures, again, open waters at the top, the marshes at the bottom, and what you're seeing here is the crossover. So this is the current data projected with growth to be able to determine when we cross the 50% at a 100 threshold. And that orange is 100 count, and the 50, that's the blue line that you see there. So you see in zone 1, the open water, we cross 50% at 100 count right around July 30th. And then below that, Biloxi Marsh, as you saw in that size frequency on the previous slide, that everything was really small, a lot of it tightly grouped in that 1,300 to 2,000. And you don't see it cross over to meet that 50% threshold until August 27th. Zone 2, that's the middle. That zone 2 includes Vermilion, but I remove it here based on the law that Vermilion cannot open on a PM, and it's easier because the data in Bear Terre and Terrebonne often reflect each other. So this is zone 2 without Vermilion Teche. Again, similar to what you saw with the open water in zone 1, tight groupings in anywhere from that 5160 all the way again up to that 200 count. Again, they're all fluctuating between 5, 6, 7, 8% of the total amount of white shrimp that we caught in the samples. Below that, the crossover date, when do we reach the 100 count at 50%? You can see on August 2nd, we crossed that threshold of 50%. Based on the commission meeting today, the earliest date that we would be able to open would be on August 9th. So if you do look at August 9th, then you're going to be able to see that we're right around that 62%. That would be 62% at 100 count. So now Vermilion Teche by itself, what you see here in the size frequency at the top, you see a little bit smaller size shrimp there. You see, 8100s again up to that 170 count, making up 8 to 10%. When you look at the data itself projected forward, right around August 1st is when we see that crossover at 50% at 100 count. And again, with the earliest date that we could open would be August 9th. You see we're roughly around 60% that would be at 100 count or larger. Zone 3, Calcasieu Cameron Basin. You can see there what we have. Most of the shrimp are sitting around that 111 to 140 up to 200 count. You can still see that there's some larger shrimp in there, but the majority of shrimp when we sampled last week were, anywhere from that 150 range. So when you look at the crossover graph below, you see that it actually crosses over right around August 7th. So again, based on the commission meeting today and the 72-hour notice, the earliest date we could open would be the 9th, which we're at 55% at 100 count or bigger on August 9th. So doing statewide, looking at the statewide information, taking Biloxi Marsh out because we all saw that it was a lot of really small shrimp there. Similar to what you were seeing in zone 1 and 2, you see that tight grouping for statewide data in that 61 to 70 count, all the way up to 200. Statewide crossover happens right around July 31st. When you're projecting it forward based on the earliest date we could open, which is August 9th, you're right around that 63%. So we put the tidal range in at Bear Terre Pass. This is the one that we often use just to show where the moons fall, how the tide cycle works with these recommendations. Again, you can see at the bottom, we have the 8th and the 22nd highlighted there to represent the full moon. You can see that on the 8th, that's our new moon. So if the season was to open at the earliest date, the 9th, we would be right on high tide, working the backside of the moon. So we were able to start our shrimp down to base sampling again this July for the August season. The sampling took place on July 26th for Bear Terrier and Terrebonne, and sampling took place on the 27th of July for the Pontchartrain and Vermilion Teche Basin. You'll see on the table below, in Pontchartrain, which was mainly focused in the Lake Bourne, right around the Biloxi Marsh area, 5 total sites were taken. The LWF gear that we sample with, we actually came up with a 529 count average, while the commercial gear had 114 count average. So I can say that looking back on our previous 2 years of data, what we've seen is anytime we're working in smaller shrimp, which you can even see the smaller shrimp size in the commercial gear, we tend to have a large separation of size difference between our standardized sampling gear versus commercial gear. So that's mainly because we're able to catch smaller size shrimp when we're sampling. But you go to Bear Terrier, where we did another 5 sites. You can see that our gear averaged a 67 count out of those 5 sites, while the commercial skimmer gear had a 70 count average. For Terrebonne, we did a total of 6 sites. We had a 1 count average. The commercial gear was 63 count. That was also a skimmer. And then in Vermilion Teche, 5 sites were done. We had a 214 count, and they had an 88 count average. And again, that's a little bit smaller size shrimp, so we expect to see a little bit difference in the count size. So the biological recommendation, based on the crossover date of what we saw, the Mississippi-Louisiana state line westward to the eastern shore of South Pass of the Mississippi River would open 6 a.m. August 9th, 2021, except for Biloxi Marsh, which would open 6 a.m. August 27th, 2021. And then for Zone 2, from the eastern shore of South Pass of Mississippi River westward to the Atchafalaya River ship channel, that would open 6 p.m. August 9th, 2021. And that's just the Bear Terrier Terrebonne area. And then from the Atchafalaya River ship channel westward to the Louisiana-Texas line, this includes Vermilion with the Calcasieu Basin, it would open 6 a.m. August 9th, 2021. I got a map here that kind of allows you to see that. You can see far to the east, a little bit darker shade yellow, representing August 9th at 6 a.m. Also far to the west, you see that same color. You got the middle, which is a little lighter shade yellow, representing the 6 p.m. designation. And then you have the purple, which represents to open at a later date at 27th. And then this is showing by basin the data we collected in white. That represents the percentage of shrimp that we caught that were 100 count or larger, while the yellow represents 50 count or larger. So all the way to the east in the Pontchartrain on the 9th, from the data we collected, projected out, 68% would be at 100 count or larger in size, while 32% would be 50 count or larger. Bear Terrier Basin, 80% would be 100 count or larger, with 43% at 50 count or larger. And then Terrebonne, 60% at 100 count with 37 at 50. And then you'll see Vermilion is 63 and 27. And then Calcasieu representing 55% at 100 count with 8% at 50 count. And you can remember those shrimp were a little smaller in that size frequency. So with that, I'm going to stop screen share, and I'm going to take any questions that I may have.
All right, thank you. Yes, Mr. Commissioner Sincere.
Hello there. How y'all doing today?
Good, thank you, sir.
I wanted to ask some questions about comments that have been received, and as far as percentage wise in opening on the 9th across the board and opening later. Does someone have that information from the department?
Are you referring to the comments received through the commission email portal?
Yes.
We had a total of 23 comments received. There were There was one that said the shrimp were too small with no specific opening date. There were 8 comments for opening August 16th or later statewide. There was 1 for opening later than August the 9th with 2 openings, with the east side being later than the west side. There were 12 comments received on the August 9th department recommendation, excuse me, and there was 1 comment received to open August 27th statewide.
Okay. If it's appropriate, Madam Chairperson, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to open season across the state on the 9th of August, as recommended by the department.
Okay, I think 9th for most areas. Peyton, can you hear yet?
Yes, ma'am. I had to switch around my speaker some reason, but I have you now.
So the recommendation department is the 9th for most areas, and there's one area that's different, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It was zone 1 was the 9th at 6 a.m. except Biloxi Marsh, which was August 27th at 6 a.m. Zone 2, Bear Terry and Terrebonne were the 9th at 6 p.m. And then Vermilion and Zone 3 were the 9th at 6 a.m.
And Mr. Commissioner Sinceri, is that your motion, sir?
You know, I'm actually thinking about across the board on the 9th, because if the shrimp are too small in a certain area, I just don't think that people are going to go there unless they want to. That's my opinion. And if they feel that they could make a living going for those smaller shrimp, with, I think what I saw, it was like 32% that were 50 count in that eastern part of the state, and 68% that was at least 100, then you'd probably have less people fishing over there unless that's what they were targeting. So I'm going to stick with my motion and open everything cross state on 9th.
All right. Do we have a second or a substitute?
Jerry, I got my hand up. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can't. Who's that talking?
This is Andrew, Commissioner Blanchard.
Okay, Andrew, go ahead.
I just, I just wanted to let you know, yesterday we had our shrimp task force meeting yesterday, and the recommendation from the task force was a little different, but after we recommended our recommendation, I was kind of thrown in, and I'd like to just tell the commissioners, the other commissioners, of what actually occurred there. At the present time, the TED regulations was imposed on 40-foot vessels in the state of Louisiana on state waters. And the Attorney General's office is going to attempt to, I guess, file suit against, the federal government, try to get an injunction, on that. And we probably have 50% of the fishermen that have invested in TEDs to put on their vessels, and we probably got 50% of them that doesn't have the TEDs. They can't get the TEDs to put in. They don't have the net owners or anything else, for it, on that thing. So the decision that the shrimp, not say so much, the shrimp task force made for an August 16th opening was kind of based on giving the AG department a little bit of time. But when you look at the science of, that's been presented, the biology and the science, we need to really open, the season for August the 9th. So we kind of got two scenarios that we, do we, look at what's as our position, look at what we do and what's best for the fishermen, or are we looking what's best for the science? And it's a very, very difficult situation in order to, to set the season. But as I wiggled through everything last night, and, I would go with the recommendation of following the wildlife and fisheries. I'd even make the motion following what Peyton has recommended as the August 9th opening, with the Biloxi Marsh closed until the August 27th opening that he suggested. And we just go with the science, and doing that, we'll just let the politics fall where it is, and get our people back to work, and hopefully, the right people can do what they can do, for our fishermen, with their lawsuit and injunction as it is.
Okay, thank you. That's Commissioner Sinceri's motion failed for lack of a second. There's another motion on the floor from Commissioner Blanchard. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a second. I believe at this point that, well, let me just say, if the AG can get an injunction regarding the TEDs, that's a good thing, but we have, and according to Commissioner Blanchard, it's anecdotal, but a large percentage of our commercial fishermen have taken the steps they need to take to be in compliance with the law. So I believe we need to give them the opportunity to make a living. So unless there are any other commissioners having a comment at this point, Ms. Susan, do I wait 3 minutes before we attempt to vote?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that's what Cole's suggestion was. I can set my timer for 3 minutes and start it whenever you're ready.
Okay, now,
Madam Chair, could one of y'all restate the motion so that the public knows what they're commenting on one more time?
I think the motion is to follow the recommendations of the department with regard to the opening, which would be the 9th, except for the Biloxi Marsh. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Joe, you sleeping?
Time.
All right. Then there's a motion on the floor. I guess we've all reviewed the comments. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is, Peyton, that's you again, receive and consider notice of intent to establish closures of certain orders for the 2022 derelict crab trap removal program.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commission members. I apologize for not being able to hear you. For some reason, after my test this morning, things worked great. And then when it's my turn to actually go into action, it all failed on me. So I'm sorry.
That's
But
okay.
I got you now. So again, the chat feature for any comments, just as a reminder. I'm going to talk about the 2021 derelict crab trap results, and then try to establish the 2022 proposed cleanup areas that we'll focus on next year. So our 2021 derelict crab trap removal results. Before we get started, just a few images there to show some of the efforts that we had. You can see traps stacked up on boats, stuck in the marsh. You can see the landing site of the disposal, and you can see our helper, the Pelican, as we're going out. So in 2021, we had 4 proposed closure areas. The first one you can see right there south of Delacroix Highway. The second one was in the far eastern portion of Terrebonne. The third closure, that was our eastern portion of the Vermilion Teche. And then the fourth closure was north of Delacroix Highway. All of these took place early February and then late February, beginning of March. For our first Pontchartrain closure that you saw there, that took place from the 1st of February through the 14th, 2,162 traps were removed. In that eastern Terrebonne basin, this is the first time we've ever cleaned up that far, so we really didn't know what we were going to get. That also took place from the 1st of February through the 14th, and we were able to remove 107 traps. The eastern Vermilion Teche Basin, again, we followed suit. We did it from February 1st through the 14th. This area had also never been cleaned up before, but we were able to remove 113 traps. And then the fourth closure, that second Pontchartrain Basin closure, that took place between February 22nd through March 7th, 2,781 traps were removed. So the program results, just to show this, I know you're probably getting familiar with this now. The program began in 2004. So 2004, 2005, the first 2 years. There was a total of 6 areas cleaned up in those 2 years. The annual average between those 2 years was almost 5,800 traps removed. 2006 to 2016, we slowed the program down to where we were only doing 1 to 2 areas a year. That dropped our annual average to just over 1,400 traps a year. But in 2017, we've been ramping it back up. And so through 2021, we've had a total of 22 closure areas. That's averaging anywhere between 4 to 6 areas a year. And with that, we've brought our annual average to almost 4,500 traps per year. So since the program, a total of 48 areas, with nearly 50,500 traps removed. So for 2022, the proposed areas. Again, before we move forward, just some quick legislation as to what the commission can do through statute. The commission is to designate the area of the trap closures. Y'all can designate who will collect the traps, where the disposal sites will be, the dates of the trap closures, and the disposition of traps. And I have a note here that says designate the secretary. This is similar to what we did last year, to where in the NOI, we labeled that the commission would give the secretary the authority to determine the disposition of traps. This is because we were working on a pilot program, but due to COVID, we canceled it. We're talking with the industry now. We're trying to ramp up enthusiasm from them right now to see if they want to move forward with the pilot program next year. If we do, we just wanted to be ready to where the secretary could give approval for the disposition of those traps. The authorized dates for these closures in the winter months can be closed for up to 16 days, anytime between February 1st through March 31st. During the spring, it could be closed for 14 days in conjunction with the inshore shrimp season opening. And then at any time that the crab harvest is closed for biological or technical reasons, the commission may also allow the removal of crab traps. So our first area, Terrebonne Basin. I'll give a very brief description, starting north, working west, south, and then east. This is the Falgout Canal, following Lake Decade through Bayou Decade, around Lost Lake, following that down through 4 League Bay. Then we go out of Oyster Bayou, following the Shrimp Inside Outside line east. We go north, going on Bayou Grand Caillou up to the Tennessee Gas Pipeline, and then follow Bayou DeLarge up to Falgout Canal. We're recommending that this take place February 1st through the 14th. The second closure, Vermilion Basin. Again, this is February 1st through the 14th. This is our central location. As I explained earlier, we had that eastern portion we did last year. So Vermilion is pretty much broken into 3 segments as to how we're focusing on cleaning now. So this is the central one. That's the Acadiana Navigational Channel, following the northern shore of Marsh Island, due north, then up the Ivanhoe Canal through the Intracoastal back to the origin. For our Barataria Basin, starting at the Hero Canal, following the Intracoastal southwestward, and then we go down through Bayou Piro, and then following around Little Lake to the south portion of it, going due east to Wilkinson Canal, back up through the Mississippi. And this will take place February 7th through February 20th. And then the last one, Calcasieu Basin. This is the West Cove portion of Calcasieu Lake. All of West Cove, including West Cove Canal, which will likely be the only disposal location that we could use, just because there's not a lot of different launches around. And also the West Pass of West Cove. And this would be February 18th through the 23rd. And one thing you'll notice is that we're pushing all of the proposed closures into 1 month. So what we're trying to do is have less impact on the industry and the fishermen. We're doing it in one of the slower months of the year. And if we can put them all together really close, we'll be able to put some volunteer events in there as long as COVID restrictions allow. And then we'll be able to get it done before we get into Mardi Gras with Lent. So we'll try to get it all knocked out early in, have a nice impact on removing traps. Some of the things to remember, any remaining traps are considered abandoned. LWF, or only those designated, may retrieve those traps. Traps can be removed between 1/2 hour before sunrise to 1/2 hour after sunset. All traps must be brought to the designated disposal site, and that designated disposal site must be within the closure. And traps removed from within a closure area shall be considered abandoned and are property of the state. Such traps shall not be possessed outside of that area unless specifically distributed by the department. And that leads back into that disposition authority given to the secretary. With that, I can take any questions.
Did we lose Madam Chair?
Hey, Cole,
Seems like it.
we did. I don't
Yeah,
see her.
I just got a text from her that she lost her connection and she's trying to reconnect.
Okay.
In the interim, does Commissioner McPherson want to
Hey,
pick up?
I have
Lost my connection.
I have her on speaker right now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Madam Chair. Would you like for Joe to take over, or you want us to hold on for a few minutes while you try to get your connection back?
No, I don't know what it's doing. Let Joe take over and I'm gonna try to get back on.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Okay, do we have any questions of the commissioner? Do we have any comments from the public?
No comments were received through the commission email portal on this subject.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Susan. All those in favor of accepting,
We need a motion first.
I'm sorry. Trying to do. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it, Joe.
All right, we have a second, and Andrew, mine and your hands are up. Since I've got the floor, I'll lower mine.
Yeah, I lower mine too right now.
Do you have a question?
No, I didn't know other than what Peyton's looks very presentable to me.
All right.
Commissioner McPherson, before you
All
put
those in favor?
Wait, Mr. McPherson.
Before we put
Yeah.
it to a vote,
Yes, ma'am.
I know we received public comment through the portal, but this is an opportunity to receive it through the chat. So we're going to open that up for 3 minutes before y'all take a final vote on it. Mr. Chair.
Started.
I'm going to use this opportunity while we're waiting on any comments to say we received some criticism about why open the comments if there's not going to be any discussion. And the audience needs to understand that this works the same way. All the commissioners are seeing the chat. And it would be just like a presentation at a commission meeting. Unless a commissioner has a question or wants to comment on the public's comments, which in this case are coming in on the chats, and there is no discussion. You disagree with that, Cole, chime in.
No, sir, that's correct. Public comment is for you to receive. Discussion is not mandated. It's only allowed if a commissioner wants to engage in the discussion. The comments
didn't want
to part of the record.
That we're not, that we don't value their comments and their input. And on the shrimp issue, we had so many comments prior to the actual commission meeting that we had looked at.
Thank you for addressing that.
I don't see any comments coming up.
We're gonna still wait the 3 minutes. We're gonna still wait 3 minutes, Commissioners.
People are supposed to send in their cards before so that we can have those public comments. The chat is on the whole time.
So Commissioner Sunseri, on that note, we are only accepting the comments as they come in through this official 3 minute period on these agenda items. For that reason and for consistency, it's our preference to leave it up for 3 minutes. Those will be received.
Okay.
While we're waiting, Commissioner Sincere, 2 of those licenses behind you are expired.
What did you say? Oh, goodness gracious. No, I think I got them. Everything is prepaid like 3 years in advance.
Time is up.
Thank you, Miss Susan. We'll vote now. All in favor of accepting the department's recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, unlike the chairman, I don't have the agenda in front of me. What is the next item, Ms. Falcon?
Update on Lake Bistineau Dam signage and overview of department-owned dams by Ricky Moses.
Okay, that would be Mr. Moser.
Good morning. This is Ricky Moses, the biologist, Inland Fisheries Biologist Director. I'm off of mute here. I am trying to start my video and I'm trying to go to the slideshow. How am I doing? Can anybody, it seems like I'm wanting to open up. Anybody hear me?
We can hear you and see you.
Ricky, go ahead and select resume slideshow. That's a drop-down menu.
Okay.
And you should be good to go now.
Okay. Okay, great. There we go. Is that good? Can everybody see and follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Thank you, Rick.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I am got a very short presentation this morning. It's essentially a follow-up from the Bistineau Barrier Project that I talked about at the last month commission meeting. At the last meeting, I had very little information to give you. It was kind of a short notice, and everybody was still scrambling to get started or to get this project underway. So essentially, I have some information now that will be more of an interest to you than I had last time. As most of you know, Lake Bistineau up in the southwest corner of the state. As we talked about this at the last commission meeting, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. What I wanted to point out to y'all today is that we have made a little bit of progress in the last month. I say we, essentially DOTD has done this. They have currently installed 3 signs that, as you can see on the picture, there's one on each end of the structure and one on the end of an existing fishing pier there that is almost halfway across the structure. Those were installed by DOTD and purchased by DOTD on the 20th of last month, of July, on the 20th. The signs, essentially, there's a picture of the sign right there. It's danger, dam ahead, stay back 200 feet. Okay, so that has what has currently been done. The department, we have purchased a total of 12 signs they're 48 inches by 30 inches. We have purchased those. They are in our possession. They were delivered to us. We delivered them to DOTD. These, I'm gonna jump back to the previous slide. These are going to be placed on the LA 154 bridge that are immediately in front of the structure. They're going to be installed to the current bridge pilings. DOTD is currently working on a method to install those. They were not willing to, essentially drill holes or anything in their concrete piers. They're going to make brackets to go around those columns to attach these signs to. Currently, they are waiting on the aluminum to make these brackets to hold the signs. They have tentatively scheduled week after next, starting Monday the 16th, to get these signs installed. That is tentative. They are still waiting on some materials to be able to do this. So that's where we are at on Bistineau. That's really all I have, other than the fact that they are still in the process of a project to put a barrier out in front. Now that is going to be a very much more in-depth project and take a lot more time and effort and planning and engineering and all. Rather, it's going to take a lot more time than getting the signs up. So we should have signs up, we're thinking, within a couple of weeks. I was also asked to give a report concerning how many structures the Department of Wildlife and Fishery owned, or at least I guess had responsibility of. When I looked into that, it was kind of scary, the first numbers I got. It was 222 of these, water control structures. After I looked into it a little bit closer, it became apparent that the vast majority, well over 99% of these structures that we consider water control structures are used in moist soil management and green tree reservoirs and such. So they really pose no, no danger to boaters or anyone for that matter. Those areas are essentially dry most of the year. They plug these or close gates on these small structures, to flood areas. So the department owns structures. Yes, did someone have a question?
Go ahead and finish, and then I'm gonna call on Commissioner Reynolds.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty well totally. I'm through. Other than to say that we do have two structures that we own. Both of them, Commissioner McPherson, are in your area. One's on Nantucket Lake, and the other one's crossed by Weir on Saline Larto, and both of those have signage in front of the dams warning people that they are there. So that really concludes the information that I have. So I'd be willing to take any questions or at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Reynolds.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. I can
Yes,
hear.
sir.
Can y'all? Okay, good. I'm way back here by the Sunshine Pipe down in Beverly, so signal's kind of weak. But anyway, I just want to thank, the department and also Department of Transportation for the quick turnaround on some of this and getting things out there. The public was really upset when that young man was killed over there. So I really appreciate it. And going forward, right now we're in drawdown mode on Lake Bistineau. There's a mountain of salvinia going over the spillway right now. So that's really all I had. I think statewide, DOTD and any kind of help we can get at a lot of lakes, we need at least the signage, and in places where you can put up some sort of barrier where it's feasible. I think that would be an attribute to the public not getting close to these structures. So just thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ricky, let me ask you, I very much appreciate the information that we had gotten the 12 signs to actually put on the highway bridge, because basically where DOTD put theirs, I guess they didn't have a boat, but you're actually past the bridge at that point, and you would be in, if you didn't have if you had a motor that wasn't operating or something, you'd actually be on the spillway side. Do you have to go under the bridge to get to the spillway structure, or can you access it off of that? It seems like in the presentation you made last month, there was actually a landing that was on the spillway side of the bridge.
No, sir. You have to go under the bridge. The only thing that you may have saw last week is some folks on the downstream side below the structure. There's some, folks sometimes put a boat in down there for, during certain water levels. But all of the boat launches that are in the lake are above that Highway 154 bridge.
Well, certainly it makes sense to do what y'all are with transportation doing, and that's signage on the upstream side of the bridge, where at least if a motor was dead or something, they would know to try to get to one of those pilings and hold on until they could get some assistance. So
Correct.
Again,
yes, sir. Correct. I would point out that the signs that DOTD have in place now are 4x8. They are a big sign. You can see them for a long distance. The signs that we have purchased, they're going to be, 4 by 2.5. So, but they are going to be placed in a situation where people would have to pass by them, or at least under them, to get to the structure itself. So, I think the current signs can be seen from a long distance, which is beneficial.
okay. What was the other structure other than Crossby you said was department owned?
It's the Shell Point structure at Nantachi Lake, and that is nothing but a drawdown structure. It's a concrete column with a gate on it and a pipe. And there's grading over it anyway. There's no way that anybody or anything could go through that. A boat wouldn't fit in it, and there's a grading to keep anything else large from going through it also. But that's that new structure where we had drawdown capacity in Nantachi Lake. There's a DOTD structure and spillway on the Nantachi Bay that flows into the Red River that they own.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions of the commissioners? Or any comments from the public? Do we need to open that chat since this isn't an action item?
This is not an action item. This was just for information only.
Okay.
No, sir. You don't need to receive public comment since you're not taking a vote on it for the 3 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm gonna stop.
Go ahead, Ricky.
I just said thank y'all. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and somebody else can take over.
All right, thank you. Okay, again, I apologize. I don't have a copy of the agenda in front of me. I believe, is that all the items that we had on our agenda?
The next item is to receive public comments, and we did receive one public comment through the commission email portal yesterday. The gentleman asked that a declaration of emergency be adopted to eliminate all either sex gun days on Richard K. Yancey WMA for the 2021 season. You were provided with a copy yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's our perennial comment, and really we don't have anything we could work on since we've already adopted the season for this year. But thank you for that. Are there any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, does that conclude the business of the commission?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are concluded. Thank you. We are adjourned.